Hello, my friend. I'm glad you was able to get access to this video where I'm going to explain to you how to find more peace and happiness and find the blueprint to discovering, discarding, dealing with childhood trauma. So pay close attention. I have some pertinent information at the end of this video that I'd like to share with you. Right now, a little bit about myself. I grew up with a regular childhood. I had two brothers and two loving parents, and neighborhood tag. We hung out around trees. We climbed fruit trees, went roller skating, swimming. Just every childhood dream of just having a good time. Neighborhood tag was usually around a major oak tree in the neighborhood, and kids would scramble. I ended up usually being it because I was the youngest, and I just wasn't good at neighborhood tag. And so, anyway, everything was going great, man. I had a nice childhood. Somewhere around the age of 8, the trauma began. Abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse started coming in. And me being 8 years old, I had no clue how to fix this. I had no clue how to deal with it. I was 8 years old. I couldn't tell the neighbors. I couldn't tell my brothers. I felt they would all laugh at me at the time. So I dealt with this abuse for a long time. And within, junior high, I started drinking dad's alcohol whenever he was gone or passed out. I would take a sip of his alcohol, and that kind of eased that impervious pain within, that feeling of uselessness, that feeling that I couldn't deal, I wasn't worthy. By high school, I drank and drug and smoked almost every day in high school. I had no clue I was covering up the pain. But everybody else in high school was drinking and living their life and, teenage years, and we do things that other teens do. And so by high school, I was seriously drinking and smoking weed on a regular basis every day. After graduation, fortunately, by God's grace, I graduated and I went to electrical school. I got my apprenticeship, my journeyman license. Construction worker. Most construction workers drink. Nothing against construction workers. I was one, and I drank. And if they wouldn't drink, they would drink and go home. I would drink the whole 6-pack and end up smoking and staying out all night and trying to look for more. So I realized I had a problem. And it became so much of a problem that I ended up in treatment centers and rehabs. And by the time I got my journeyman license and got out of treatment, I went back to school and started working on my master's license. So now I lived the American dream. I got the family. I got the 2.5 kids. I bought the house. I'm a success. Now I'm working on education. I'm a master electrician, start my own business, and voila, I have arrived. I've done everything that the American dream and I was taught. Dad taught me well. But I could not stop drinking and smoking and drugging. And that landed me back in another treatment center. So I take one step back and I take one step forward. A little bit more success, another treatment center. I started another education, thinking that that would fix the hole in my soul. And so I proceeded to get my associate, bachelor's, and master's degree. But I still felt empty. I started my business. I still felt empty. And that emptiness led me back to the environment of drinking and drugging. And so during these trips back and forth, drinking and drugging in treatment centers and rehabs, I listened to counselors and I started praying and meditating, and I heard a guy named Reverend Michael Beckwith that said something that just changed my life. And he was talking about an acorn and a mighty oak, and I knew about mighty oak trees. We had a home, an oak tree for main base. I climbed oak trees. I climbed fruit trees. I know about seeds in oak trees. But he said something that was astonishing to me, that an acorn has everything it needs to be a mighty oak. And all it needed was the right environment. Wow. The right environment. I thought I was in the right environment. I worked hard. I got my education. What environment? The mighty oak becomes a mighty oak by the soil and the acorn being placed in the right environment. It already is coded and loaded with everything that God has for it to be. It's already destined to be an oak tree. It just needs the right environment. After hearing that, I was blown away. It brought back childhood memories of the oak trees that I used to climb and relating to it, how large it is and the shade it provided in the summertime and the protection it provided when you touched it, you were home and you didn't have to be it the next time. All of these things spun around in my head. And so the spiritual portion, I started listening even closer, and Reverend Beckwith talked about spiritual remedies, spiritual, physical, and mental remedies. And I started praying and meditating on a regular basis. I started journaling regularly. And I started working on the mental, identifying and learning about. And then the physical, I started eating better. And I started working on the physical exercise. And so at the end, I'll give you the 3 specifics that I did to discover a man's blueprint to peace and happiness by discovering, discarding, and dealing with childhood trauma. But I went on to do more studying and took on more education and finally found out that I was suffering from childhood trauma and that there was a hole in my soul. And that hole needed to be filled, and that hole needed to be identified. And journaling helped me identify it. Prayer and meditation on a regular basis helped me identify the childhood trauma that I had forgotten, that I had covered up. And so if you're anything like me and you suffer from some of the ramifications of childhood trauma, I can tell you that I have a platform that we can discover and we can discard and we can deal with on a regular basis. If you're not familiar with what childhood trauma looks like in an adult, I can tell you for me, it came out in drug addiction, it came out in alcoholism, it came out in multiple partners, not being able to commit, it came out in depression, and a slew of other things. Just bad behavior. You know, we label it as bad behavior, but it was for me covering up childhood trauma. And so the 3 things, as I stated earlier, the first thing that I did was I identified and admitted that, yes, there was some childhood trauma there and I needed to deal with it. Now what do? I got it. I realized I got it. And so through prayer and meditation, some shadow work, several other coaching programs, and some more education helped me identify the childhood trauma in my past. And then I started reading in the mental aspect of the disease and of the hurt and of the pain is the mental aspect. I started studying, finding more books, courses, things of that nature that I can give details on later on. The third thing, as stated, was physical. I started working out 20 minutes a day. I started eating better, drinking more water, staying hydrated. All of these things helped me get in touch with me so I could start identifying and dealing with each trauma or all of it as one. Do not try to deal with trauma by yourself. Do not treat it with more alcohol or more drugs or more sex or multiple partners or all of these things that comes out when we don't know how to deal with it on a regular basis. So I implore you, by all means, if you don't get help with me, seek help to deal with childhood trauma. But I did create a coaching program, and I've dedicated the rest of my life to dealing with, identifying, discarding childhood trauma. So click the button below. I look forward to helping you find peace and happiness, or more peace and happiness. And I look to help you any way I possibly can. Thanks.